Hello, Local Matters family. Welcome back to another video episode. I am Janice Allen Jackson, and I am welcoming you to this April 26th edition of Local Matters, a show designed to make you a more confident voter and a more engaged citizen. As always, today's show is brought to you as a service of my consulting firm, where we proudly provide services to nonprofit and local government organizations. You can learn more about my firm by going to my web address, which is right there behind me. It's janiceallenjackson.weebly.com. Also, you can go to my LinkedIn page. Please connect with me there. And I got to announce all our other social media. Please follow on Facebook if you're on that platform. That is Local Matters Podcast of Georgia. And if you're listening right now, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Today's episode is of particular interest to those who wonder what can be done to help residents gain a better understanding of how local government works. And it's also geared toward those who want to understand what steps citizens can take when they aren't happy with how things are going. My guest is Daryl Rolle. He's a local barber here in the Augusta area. He's an entrepreneur and he's an instructor. And his role today is to inform us about something called the Neighborhood Leadership Institute. Thanks for being with us. Local Matters family, today we are joined by a citizen in our community who has gotten really involved in some important work. And we want to introduce you to this important work. And we also want to give you an opportunity to get involved as well. But before we start talking about our Neighborhood Leadership Institute, I want to introduce you to Daryl Rolle. He is our guest today. And I'm going to ask Daryl, like I do many of my guests, to just give us a little bit of background about himself, where he's from, what he does here in the community, and why he felt like it was so important to utilize his time on the Neighborhood Leadership Institute. How are you doing today, Daryl?
I'm great. How are you?
I am great. Hey, go right ahead. Our listeners want to know who you are.
Okay. Well, I'm a simple entrepreneur here in the area, and so I've been in Augusta for a little over 20 years, and so I believe I've earned my membership card to Augusta at this point in the game, and you know, just I love this market. I love Augusta for what it is, the growth that it has, the potential that it has. And that's sort of why I decided to take roots here, if you will, from a business standpoint and build. And so by trade, I'm a barber, right? I'm a barber instructor. And, you know, I have taught barbering here in the area for about 5 years over at Augusta Tech. I then went from there and hit the road and went from coast to coast, educating others in my industry about the business of, the how-to of, and it also gave me an opportunity to do a little talk on the stage called TEDx about the interaction of, or the power of the chair and the client, and how, you know, it's there's a self-awareness piece to what we do. And so it was a really interesting talk, if you will. And so you know, my trade has not cheated me at all, and I've been blessed to be able to give back and to be able to help other entrepreneurs sort of find their way in their own respective industries. From that, you know, I've always been entrepreneur since a young kid. So I tell people when they ask me, well, what is it that you do? And I tell people, well, I find problems and I create solutions, and every now and then somebody will pay me for it, and so that's what I do. And so I've been blessed to be able to participate in a few other startups in other industries, and I've also participate in a few syndication deals in real estate, and so I have my hands in a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but it creates an opportunity for me to be able to take care of the family and pay a few bills. So
That's awesome. And you said you did a TED Talk?
I did, yes, ma'am.
I'm jealous. That's one of my goals in life, man. Is it on YouTube?
It is on YouTube. It absolutely is, yes.
Okay. What do I need to search for on YouTube? Because I want to listen to this.
So just my name, Daryl Rolle, and TEDx, and it should pop up.
Okay. And that is DARYLROLLE. So you come to Augusta, you've been here for 20 years, you've established yourself professionally with your barbershop, and go ahead and name the barbershop for everybody.
It's Dapper and Company.
Dapper and Company, located on Wrightsboro Road.
1701 Wrightsboro Road. Yep.
In District 1.
In District 1, that's correct.
Okay, which leads us into where we are with the Neighborhood Leadership Institute. I obviously I'm a resident of District 1. A lot of my listeners know that already. A lot of my listeners are also residents of District 1. And there's a District 1 Facebook page where I saw a flyer that you had put up, and it says, join the Neighborhood Leadership Institute. Do you want to know how you can make a difference in your community? And as soon as I saw that, I reached out to you. I said, I got to get Daryl as a guest on the show. So if you could, just in a nutshell, tell us what the Neighborhood Leadership Institute is.
So Neighborhood Leadership Institute is created to help develop the community's communication and leadership skills for the neighbors with similar interest in learning how to take an active part in the community planning and development efforts, including one of the large efforts right now that is going on in the city, which is the Augusta Choice Initiative. And so that's the Neighborhood Leadership Institute in a nutshell. And so it is a part of the Choice Neighborhood Initiative, which is, it was created with, by HUD to be able to help residents understand how the leverage of public and private dollars can be able to help create strategies to address, neighborhoods struggling with, public housing, as well as just distressed neighborhoods. And so just a collaboration, with public-private partnerships to be able to revitalize areas all across the country. And so, and through that initiative, we have that going on here in the area. And so a part of that says that, hey, there needs to be an education component to this large scale community revitalization. And, the beauty of the format that I like, Ms. Jackson, about this initiative is that in years past, we have seen community revitalization go awry because the community, a lot of times, whether it be intentionally or unintentionally, usually becomes isolated out of the process, if you will, or sort of not captured in the actual process for whatever reason. So what the Neighborhood Leadership Institute does is that it says, well, wait a second, we're going to make sure and ensure that not only is the community, the residents, stakeholders, business leaders, entrepreneurs and others involved, but also we want to make sure that everybody is up to speed about the process, which is very, very, very important. So in a nutshell, that's what the Neighborhood Leadership Institute is looking to accomplish.
Okay, thank you for that. And you are speaking my language with many of the things that you said. I mean, you started off talking about the presence of public housing. There's a good deal of public housing in District 1, always has been. And we also, of course, over the years have seen the blight increase in District 1. Going way back when, before you were ever in Augusta, Georgia. Of course, I grew up here, and I remember certain areas where, there was a lot of substandard housing, but there were a lot of people. A couple decades later, I come back to Augusta. A lot of the substandard housing is gone, and it hasn't been replaced with higher quality housing. And it's just nobody in certain areas of the district anymore that used to be very, very heavily populated. So also, of course, I heard as I came back, the lack of engagement, lack of trust, quite frankly, with government. And a lot of times people don't trust stuff because they don't know stuff. So it sounds like what you're hoping to accomplish here is to help people know a little bit more so that they can become more fully engaged and feel better about what's happening. Is that fair?
That's absolutely fair. And if I can jump on that point that you just said, where you were saying, people don't trust stuff because they don't understand stuff, or it's one of those things that, I wanted to be sure that we understood what that trust issue looks like, and to make sure that it's understood that the trust is justified. Okay, because when you start talking about historic housing across the country, across the years past, I mean, we've seen the patterns, we've seen the numbers, we know about redline, and we know about the G word, gentrification, and so on and so forth, and what those things traditionally have carried in terms of narrative in our community. But the biggest thing is, I wanted to make sure, in one of the first sessions that we had, Dr. Faye Hargrove, she came in and she did a great job at making sure that the narrative and tone was set about trust, right? And trauma, community trauma, and understanding how we take that trauma and those trust issues and we transition them into collaboration and energy towards, being a part of the process.
And as you talk about the classes, just if you can sort of describe what makes up the Institute. I mean, who's in the room, how many are in the room, what type of discussions take place in the room to move from this idea of trauma to collaboration.
Absolutely. So, in the room, first and foremost, we have the residents. We have the residents of of Allen Homes. We have residents of Laney Walker. We have residents from the Harrisburg area. And of course, we have the stakeholders within those areas. So again, the community leaders, business leaders. We have one or two, folks in government. Of course, we've had some of our commissioners there visiting with us as well. And so that's the makeup of the room in terms of size and volume. I mean, again, initially we were looking at, 10 to 15. That's just sort of what I anticipated. Really didn't have a history to go off of, because this is the first cohort. This is the first time that it's been running, but the word spread it pretty quickly, and the right people got the message, and the right people have been there thus far, and we've had an average size of 25 participants in it. And I'm gonna be honest with you, Ms. Jackson, this thing really has a lot of tread on the tire, if you will, for future cohorts and community participation.
Okay. And at the end of the sessions, have y'all doing, is it 5 sessions with this first group?
Right. So with this first group, it's been 5 sessions. Yes.
Okay. And at the end of the 5 sessions, is there something that comes forth? Is it just information and this group graduates, or is there end product or a list of recommendations or anything that just comes out of that?
Yeah, so I believe what I hear you asking is like, is there anything tangible that the participants are taking away at the end of these sessions? And so what we tried to do, again, we had a short window to try to assemble this and put it together. So what I did was I created what we call the neighborhood leadership roadmap, or the community development roadmap. And what that does is that identifies after each session strong takeaways, right? So let's say, for instance, so the first one, again, that we did with Dr. Faye Hargrove, that one was about community trauma and collaboration. And so the pin on the roadmap was create consensus. Okay. And so the second one, which was about the building blocks of change in community development, that pin or that takeaway from that session was identify resources, right? And so in that pathway, after each session, there is a pin or a key takeaway that the residents have to be able to use as a point of reference from each session.
All right. And you got 5 sessions with this one. In fact, they're ending now.
Yes.
Do you envision that, after this first 25, there'll be an opportunity for another, 15, 20, 25 residents of the areas that you named to come together in a second cohort?
Absolutely. Again, a lot of tread on the tire with this program, and I've done these community programs before, just not in this format. And I'm gonna be honest with you, this one has a lot of participation, just because people want to know, people want to know what's going on in the neighborhood, but bigger than that, people want to understand the process. So I do see this having plenty of tread and a pathway for more of these coming here in the future.
Okay. And when you say understand the process, I just want to make sure our audience understands what sorts of processes are they getting more information and understanding about?
Right. So again, the overall process, which is the community development process, right? And so the pieces of the community development process that we are trying to ensure that are covered, are, how does revitalization work in the community? And what does it take as a resident to be able to lead and communicate a conversation about what this looks like, right? And so I'm going to give you an example, Ms. Jackson. So I just came back in town from Fort Pierce, Florida, where I'm from, and so I'm down there, and of course, whenever I go to any city, my eye always goes to 2 things: the cranes in the sky, okay, and the traffic. Those 2 things, that's just how my mind works. And so I saw those 2 things largely increasing. But the thing is, when I talk to my family, their narrative of what's going on is always doom and gloom. The sky's falling, right? They're coming to, these people, they're coming in to take our land, and they're coming in, they're going to push us out, and they're going to do this, and they're going to do that. And so my question to them always is, okay, so what's the plan and what are we going to do about it? And so usually it's, oh, well, they're going to do what they want to anyway. Are they? And so my follow-up usually is, okay, well, there's a process to all of this. And the first thing that needs to happen is we need to be able to understand where our place is with it. Are we going to be active in the revitalization? So in other words, are we going to, go to the community meetings that have to be posted and have to be had when it comes to the planning commission or the planning committees? Are we going to go to the zoning meetings as we see these things posted? Are we going to be able to have a conversation with our commissioners or with our government about, what ails us or what we need to be a part of this process? See, those are the starting places of change, of leaders. And so as we are trying to empower these leaders, what we are doing is we want to make sure, and let me say this real quick. There's a saying that I start off every meeting with, and it came from John Henry Clark. And the saying is, don't raise your voice, improve your argument, right? And so if we are going to be leaders, Ms. Jackson, in the community, if we are going to be a part of the process, okay, we need to be able to improve our argument. And so that's the starting place that we want to make sure that residents are able to conquer as they grow in leadership.
Sounds like you're giving them the knowledge and tools to be better equipped to have some control over what happens in their communities. Fair?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay. And that is so important. You mentioned planning commission and zoning. Those things are so important because basically, unless the zoning ordinance says that you can have this particular use, there's an opportunity to fight it, whatever it is, from single family housing to multifamily, parking requirements, height requirements on structures. I mean, the zoning ordinances control all of those things.
All of those things. Yep.
So you go to the planning commission first, just so y'all know the process. My listeners want y'all to understand. Planning commission reviews an application for rezoning. If it's something that does not fit within the current zoning, it has to be rezoned. Planning commission staff will review those items to see, hey, this fits, this doesn't fit, et cetera, et cetera. They make a recommendation to the planning commission. The planning commission then makes a decision, but it then has to go to the Augusta Richmond County Commission in order to get final approval if it's something that requires a rezoning or variance or what have you. So that's why oftentimes you'll see the commission chamber packed when there's a development that the neighbors in the surrounding area don't like. They'll say, well, we want multifamily here, or, whatever the case may be, or we don't want this industry or this type of business or whatever. So you've hit on the point where, yes, we do have some say so.
That's it. We absolutely do. We absolutely do. And, Ms. Jackson, I'm gonna be honest with you, in the community, we have to learn how to give ourselves more grace for allowing better. Okay. Again, I just went and visited my grandfather. He's 98 years old, right? And my grandfather, his house, is he has always tried to keep his yard pristine and try to keep his yard together. But he's in the hood, and so all he can control is what's inside of that gate. And but what does help my grandfather, and what would help my grandfather, is if the house that he worked over 30 something years picking fruit in the fruit groves of Florida, if the value was to increase while his taxes would stay the same. Now, I don't think he would turn that down at all. I don't know too many people, Ms. Jackson, that would turn down that opportunity, right? And so, but if that's not explained, or that is not properly communicated, that, you know what, no, there are packages, there are opportunities where these things happen in the community, then we're always going to think that when it comes to revitalization, that this is always going to be a bad situation because of history's past. And so there has to be a balance when we're having these conversations, because again, those are a lot of realities that happen. You know, our communities deserve better. They do. But what does that better look like? And how far does that better impede, if you will, on the current status of the residents that are there? You know, we want better food sources to eliminate the food deserts. Well, those are great justifiable asks, right? But it takes certain things in order for that to happen, which is, you know, you have to have more people to be able to pay taxes, right? And so that means you have to have people in the community that can be able to feed into that tax pool to be able to justify for a store to want to come to that neighborhood, right? And so all of the moving parts, the levers, the triggers of community development and economic development, again, should be properly communicated. Unfortunately, in years past, they just haven't. And so so our community does deserve better when it comes to these things. But again, we have to make sure that we understand both sides of it and that it has balance as it happens.
And you know, one of the reasons I think that people don't understand it and maybe it hasn't been appropriately communicated is this is tough to explain. It really is kind of tough to explain. But I'm one resident of District 1 that pretty much refuses to leave. I mean, it would take some extreme circumstance for me to leave District 1. And when people though start complaining about, oh, you know, these houses are getting more expensive and different folks are moving into the area, I said, well, you know, I'm looking for more higher income neighbors because I want a grocery store. And that's really what it's going to take.
That's what it's going to take.
That is really what it's going to take. So I like the fact that in Old Town right now, they're building some houses. One of my neighbors was checking some house went on the market for, I don't know, 270 something, whatever it was. And yeah, it sounds expensive, but I know that if we want that grocery store, we're gonna have to have some folks who can afford a house that costs $279.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's just the way it works. Daryl, thank you so much for being a part of the Local Matters family. Now that you're part of the family now officially. Yes. I really appreciate all that you're doing in the community as well as the rich discussion that we've had today. Is there anything else you want to share with us before we close out?
The only thing that I want to share with you all is just pretty much remember what John Henry Clark said. Don't raise your voice, improve your argument. Let's find a way for this community to keep growing and keep thriving. And let's make sure that we as community leaders stay involved so that everybody has opportunity to be able to get what they need in Augusta, Georgia.
If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions about future episodes, please leave those in the comment section below. We would love to hear from you about topics that would be of interest to you so that we can make sure that Local Matters is providing you with what you need. Thanks for being a part of the Local Matters family and be blessed.